Okay, just to pick up off of where we left off. So the last person, that last Neo-Freudian we talked about was Carl Jung. The next Neo-Freudian is Karen Horney. And so Karen Horney talked about this idea of basic anxiety, essentially this fear of being isolated and being helpless in a hostile world. It starts when we're very young. And so she was probably most known for her work in security, in social relationships, and the anxiety experienced in those situations. And also very, very well known for her disagreements with Freud's interpretation of female development. Now, we talked about Freud's notions of female development and the fact that he is very well known for saying that he really had no idea how women worked. And so Karen Horney expanded on this and said, you're absolutely right, you don't. And so she was very much against his idea of penis envy. She said, no. She's like, women do not suffer from penis envy. What women envy in men is not their penis, but their superior status in society. And so she basically contended that women didn't suffer penis envy, but that men actually suffered something called womb envy and envied the woman's capacity to bear children. And so, the idea is that men's role in reproduction is actually quite minor when you compare to what a woman physiologically, has to do. And so she argued that men actually compensated for their minor role in reproduction simply by striving to make creative achievements in their work. So they actually, attained higher status because, and they were motivated to do so because they were envious, essentially, of their role in reproduction. Okay, so that's pretty much some of her biggest contributions in this particular area. When we look at Alfred Adler brought us individual psychology. He basically said that as children, we have this intense feeling of inferiority. We can't do anything for ourselves. We are, our parents have to do everything for us. They have to feed us. They have to give us supplies. They have to give us resources. They have to open the door for us because we're too small to open doors. And so he said, essentially, as you go through life, you are constantly striving for superiority. And so, and you're essentially trying to compensate for this idea that you experience inferiority as a child. So he said that what could end up happening is that you can overcompensate too much as an adult and actually create a superiority complex. And that's where a person exaggerates their own achievements, their own importance. They think they're better than what they are and that they deserve everything. And so in essence, that can cause personality flaws. He also said that on the flip side of that, when a person is unable to compensate for a particular weakness, or if they have really excessive inferiority, feelings of inferiority, you can actually develop an inferiority complex, which is a general sense of inadequacy, weakness, and helplessness. And that can actually affect your ability to get jobs and to succeed in the world. And so he believed that, all humans were motivated to grow and achieve their personal goals, and that, these particular inferiority and superiority complexes can essentially impact personality and impact how likely it is that you're able to actually maintain your goals in life and to be able to reach those goals. Now, when we look at the strengths of the psychoanalytic perspective. Now, there are some really good strengths that we don't see in other types of personality theories. One major strength is that the unconscious is heavily talked about in the psychoanalytic approach. Also, that early experiences are very influential, and they're important for interpersonal relationships, important for adjustment, important for development of personality. And then finally, that there's some differences in how we're able to regulate those impulses, those emotions and thoughts, and how that can become socially acceptable, and how that can be formulated into our personality. Now, of course, there were some major limitations with the psychoanalytic approach. First of all, a lot of the evidence is inadequate. We have some really tiny, small sample sizes, skewed samples. Freud only tested certain kinds of people. He tested a lot of people who were potentially had major disorders. He really, looked at white men, and so, and potentially upper class white men. The concepts in the psychoanalytic approach are not only very hard to test, they're very vague, very ambiguous. And so there's a lot of contradictory information that Freud used in his theories, and is better at explaining past behaviors, right? So, we have this problem of testability. We can't predict future behaviors, but we have this, this explanation that seems to work for retrospectively, and that can be problematic. Another major problem with the psychoanalytic approach is this idea of that it's extremely sexist. When Freud talks about penis envy and how that produces, inferiority and shame, he believed that women were more vain and masochistic and jealous compared to men. He believed that women were more influenced by emotions and had a lesser ethical and moral sense than men. And he used the male psychology as a prototype and basically said that women were just a deviation of the norm of masculinity. And that's a very, very, it's a harmful way to view women. And, to think that women are lesser than men doesn't really paint a very good picture. Another very ironic thing that happened with Freud essentially is that he really wanted Jung to be his protege. He wanted Jung to continue on with all of his ideas and essentially carry it on beyond the grave. And the very interesting thing that happened was that Jung broke from him, and developed his own personality theory. And then the person who actually became Freud's protege was actually his daughter. And so, that's a very interesting sort of turn of events that actually happened with Freud, was that, he didn't have this very good view of women, but his daughter ended up carrying on his name and actually carrying on his society, and driving the psychoanalytic approach pretty far after his death. So very, very interesting stuff there. I'm going to go ahead and end this, and we're going to pick up on the humanistic perspective of personality, just so to give you, again, a little bit more direction and a little bit of a break here if you're watching these videos in a row.